The island of Skye, island of mists, of myths and ancient legends, is also known as the Winged Island. Skye gets its fantastical shape from deep sea lochs that penetrate the island's interior, creating headlands and peninsulas around the coast. Lochs are the jewels of the Scottish landscape, and to appreciate them better, I'm on a loch-hopping journey across Scotland, exploring the long, fjord-like sea lochs of the north and west, crossing the great freshwater lochs of the Highlands, and discovering the secrets of the many lochans that stud the open moors. In this programme, I've come to the Isle of Skye to hear legendary tales of mythic battles. I'll have a lesson in throwing an ancient weapon of war. Yes! Excellent! Discover a Viking ship canal and stand on the roof of the west coast. My journey follows the coast of one of the world's most famous islands, a grand tour that takes me from Lochs to Lochs and into the heart of the Cuillin Mountains. This is Lochs on the northern coast of Skye. At its southern extremity, the loch narrows and forms a smaller body of water known as Lochs Beg, where the River Snizort meets the sea. The name Snizort, I'm told, is Norse in origin. And in the language of the Vikings, it would have originally been Snæfjord or Snow Firth, or perhaps Split Firth. Either way, the name demonstrates the part that the Vikings once played in the turbulent history of Skye. 1,000 years ago, Skye was part of the Norse Empire, but the Vikings who came to raid and plunder gradually settled and assimilated with the native Gaels. Many clans associated with Skye, the rival MacDonald and MacLeod clans, for example, have Viking ancestors. The warring MacDonalds and MacLeods were forever at each other's throats, fighting over the possession of land, and the River Snizort was at the front line of a feud that lasted for generations. In 1539, a battle took place here. It's said that the victorious MacDonalds cut off the heads of the fallen MacLeod warriors and threw them into the river. As they bobbed out to sea, the heads got caught at a place called Corranacowan, the pool of the heads. Perhaps the heads floated past Holy St. Columba's Isle, which lies in the river not far from where it joins the loch. This is a place that's been sacred for hundreds of years, and at one time it was a significant religious centre where a long-vanished cathedral church dominated the view. Coming here, you can easily understand why the holy men of old first chose this island to be their religious centre. Now, it's bounded on all sides by the River Snizort, but above all, there's a really serene and contemplative atmosphere about the place. From the River Snizort and its Viking heritage, I head west towards my next loch, Lochs. On a headland above the celebrated Coral Sands, I meet up with Gordon Mackay to learn about a group of islands lying close to the shore. This is a spectacular location, Gordon. What are the names of the islands ahead of us here?
The islands of Easy, which is the one on the largest on the left. There's the centre one called Mingy, and then there's Clet, the smallest one to the right-hand side.
To the right. In the 19th century, the population of these once busy islands was cleared. Do you know where the people emigrated to?
I've never been able to trace where they've gone to, other than an old Australian lady who came to me a couple of years ago. She and her daughter had come across from Australia to visit the homeland, and I run boat trips, so I was taking them out to the island, dropped people on the island and She couldn't get up the ladder, so I said, well, we'll go for a wee spin. So we went for a little sail round the island. There was a little tear running down her face, and I was saying, what's your connection to Easy? And she said, well, my great-grandfather left Easy in 1836, and emigrated to Australia. And this is the first time any of the family had been back. Yeah. She also said the funniest thing was, he emigrated, went to Australia, where he got married and settled down. And I said, that was really nice. And she said, yeah, but the woman he married came from 2 miles away over there, and they'd never met till they got to Australia.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
Halfway around the world.
Yeah, indeed.
The islands have had many owners over the years. In the heady days of the 1960s, they attracted one of the doyens of hippie flower power.
In the 60s, Donovan, the singer, actually owned all 3 islands, part of Waternish and 3 houses in Waternish as well. And I think he had plans to maybe colonise it, shall we say, but it never came to anything.
Well, do you think he was inspired to song when he came up here?
Oh, I think this would inspire anybody to sing. In fact, I'm waiting for you to burst into song, Paul.
That'd be a long wait to see.
No, it did. Apparently it inspired some of his music.
That island's easy.
Easy.
But he never wrote a song, Take It Easy.
No, I think somebody else wrote that one. Is that not the Eagles?
Loch Dunvegan forms the eastern flank of the Duirnish Peninsula, another of Skye's mythical wings. Overlooking the sea is Dunvegan Castle, home to the chiefs of Clan MacLeod since the time of the Norse-blooded Leod, the Ugly One, who established a power base here in the 13th century. As well as being ruthless warlords, the chiefs of Clan MacLeod were also patrons of the Gaelic arts, especially music, and one musical instrument acquired a mythical status: the Highland bagpipe. Overlooking the loch is a memorial to the MacCrimmons. For centuries, they were the hereditary pipers to the MacLeod chiefs. They also ran a school for piping close to this spot. Dr. Angus MacDonald is a celebrated piper with a deep understanding of his musical heritage. The tune he's playing was written by one of the greatest MacCrimmon pipers. It celebrates the end of centuries of war between the MacDonalds and the MacLeods. Angus, it's really brilliant hearing that tune, and the hairs on the back of my neck were rising as you were playing it. But who were the MacCrimmons, and where did they first come from?
Well, the Crimmons, as far as we know, they went back to at least the 16th century and were here, and there was evidence they were in Harris and Glenelg also. But as pipers, they were chosen and given land rent-free so they could develop their art.
Why was it so important to be a patron and to support the arts in that way? Was it just a display of status and power and influence to be able to support something like a piping school?
Yeah, it added to the pleasure of life, if you like. They say that one of the last chiefs that supported the arts was Ian Brecht MacLeod, and that he had the whole gamut of in-house entertainment. He had a clown, a bard, fiddlers, pipers, and a clarsach player.
Right. By the 18th century, traditional Gaelic culture was in retreat, and the MacCrimmon Piping School on Skye was under threat.
As the chiefs became more anglicised and moved to Edinburgh and London, they neglected the patronage of music and piping, and there was no way that the piping dynasty could survive without support.
As Gaelic culture changed, the old bonds between chief and clan weakened. In the early 18th century, Chief Norman MacLeod sought ways to increase his income by turning to slavery. To follow this story, I've come to Loch Bracadale, where Norman MacLeod, known as the Wicked Man, had close to 100 of his tenants kidnapped from their homes. Men, women and children were herded on a ship bound for the Caribbean, where they were to be sold as slaves for £3 a head. When the ship was badly damaged in a storm and docked for repairs in Ireland, many of the Skye slaves escaped, bringing their plight to public attention. MacLeod of Dunvegan denied any involvement. He wrote letters to the highest legal authorities in the land, proclaiming his innocence.
This was just before the Jacobite Rising of 1745. Now, Norman MacLeod was a known sympathiser, yet he refused to join the rebels. Now, this has led some historians to speculate that he did a deal with the government not to join the rebels in exchange for dropping charges of illegal kidnap and slavery.
Slavery is probably the most extreme example of emigration, but there's been a long history in this part of Scotland of people being forced to leave their homes and travel elsewhere.
Quite often these journeys took people across the great oceans, but here on Skye, so used to emigration and clearance, there was an unexpected influx of people from overseas, not from across the Atlantic, but from across the Minch.
This is Port Nalong at the entrance to Loch Harport on the Minginish Peninsula. After the First World War, the Department of Agriculture purchased land around Loch Harport and moved a number of families from Harris and Skelpie to Skye.
They were each given 20 acres of land, 3 cows and a share of the common grazing. Now, many of these crofters were also weavers, and it wasn't long before they started to supplement their income with the tweed products of the loom. And so Portnaskye Tweeds was born.
Jenny Duffel is a recent newcomer to Port Nalong and has been inspired by the history of weaving on Skye. In her own way, she likes to keep alive the tradition which started here 100 years ago, when folk from the Isle of Harris settled on the Minginish Peninsula.
Altogether there was 68 properties created at this end of Minginish. They bought all their worldly possessions, which probably went into a suitcase, and some bought their looms and their spinning wheels.
100 years ago, Mary Ann Ferguson from Harris was one of those women who began supplementing the income of the croft by weaving. She and women like her did everything, from spinning wool, dyeing the yarn, and weaving at a simple loom brought over from Harris.
Now, I understand that Mary Ann Ferguson, who lived here, became quite well known because of her association with royalty. Now, how did that come about?
That was in 1933. The then Duke and Duchess of York, who became George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, came and had a visit to speak to the ladies, and they all got donned up in their finery. So the pictures of Mary Ann Ferguson are quite interesting because she's obviously got her poshest frock on that she could find, and she's doing the weaving. That sort of started off a sort of tradition for the ladies who would give tweed to royalty when they were married. So
Right.
in the ensuing years, when
Was that a marketing ploy, was it?
one would assume so.
By appointment to
Yes.
HRH, the
Yes,
Duke of
yes.
Duchess of York?
Yes. Yeah.
Sadly, royal patronage wasn't enough to save Portnalong tweed from being outpaced by modern production techniques. The last weaver gave up the loom in the 1980s. All that's now left of a generation of weaving are memories and a few precious samples.
This is more what I imagine
Yes.
they would have produced.
This jacket, because of the age of it and the fact that it's muted dyes, that would have been all plant dyes, gathered from various different plants around the area, lichens and irises and that type of thing.
On closer inspection, you suddenly realise just the range of colours
Yes.
that have gone into producing this fabric. And there's bright yellow, like mustard yellow, and bright blue, sky blue, and a whole subtle range of different tones which produce green.
Yes. But it
And-
blends in fantastically
yeah.
on the hill amongst the bracken.
Can I try it on?
Of course, yes.
If I were somebody as illustrious as the Duke of York back in those days, perhaps I might get it as a gift.
You might.
Think that's likely?
We have to see if it fits.
I suspect not. Well, will it fit? Will it fit? Let's see. Well, right kind of arm length, but I suspect it's made
Yes.
for a larger gent than I. But it's beautiful, isn't it? And it's really thick material, isn't it? That's
Yes. Well, it's waterproof.
yeah.
It's very dense because it needs to be waterproof up on the hill. It needs to be warm and it needs to be waterproof.
Very hard wearing.
Yes.
Lasts a lifetime, wouldn't it?
Of course, yes, that's the whole point, yes.
Well, I think it's splendid. All I need to do is to fill out a bit. And that won't be difficult.
From Portnalong and the waters of Loch Harport, my route crosses Minginish to Loch Brittle, which lies in the shadow of the mighty Black Cuillin. Joining me on the long trek around the loch is archaeologist Cuillin MacLean. Following a lonely path, we come to a headland called Ruan Dúnan and a very special lochan, Loch na Harcha, which appears to be joined to the sea by a short stretch of river. But closer inspection reveals this to be the work of human hands, an ancient canal.
Now, Cuillin, we've been tramping for, what, a good couple of hours over the moor to this location, and it really is a fascinating place. What have we got here?
And we know from the evidence that it's been populated for 5,000 years. We have chambered cairns, we have the dune up on the hill there, and then we have the what appears to be a Viking shipyard and safe anchorage with sophisticated maritime architecture to enable a fleet of longships to be safely anchored here, even in the height of winter. To begin with, the canal is used to provide access to two noosts, which are just down below us, which were areas where ships could be brought ashore. And that may be contemporary with the construction of the dune, the galleried fortress that's behind us.
So you're talking there about Iron Age times, what, about 2,000 years ago?
Just over 2,000 years ago, yes. It's fairly certain that the people who inhabited the dune here were seafarers. They would have used the sea and they would have needed ships. So that's the first phase. The second phase appears to be the construction of the canal, and that canal then has what appears to be a sluice gate added to it, which you can see across the canal to control water within the loch, so that you're able to maintain a head of water, which then allows you quickly to launch your longships down the canal and into the sea at speed. So that it's all, at any state of the tide, you're going to have sufficient of water to be able to get to the sea.
This is sophisticated civil engineering.
Substantially, it's not by accident this is done. This is calculated, careful and sophisticated construction.
And that's because this site would have been of strategic significance.
Hugely so in terms of its vista. It commands the whole of the southern approaches of the Minch. And the ship, anybody based here, is able to patrol vast areas of territory. And we're talking about essentially maritime kingdoms.
The maritime kingdoms Cuillin is referring to belonged to the era of the Vikings and the Norse Gaels. Cuillin claims descent from one of them, the warlord Askell, whose descendants became the MacAskills, the traditional seagrieves or wardens of Rue and Dúnan.
So your ancestors, in all probability, would have been here engaged in naval activities of some kind, possibly repairing the boats, crewing the boats.
Perfectly conceivable. They'd have been working. They would not have been nobility, I expect.
It's a great link to have, isn't
Fantastic,
it?
yes. This is where we belong.
And it was a busy place for generations, and yet the thread of life has now been cut.
Sadly silent, beyond the sound of the sea.
The tide of history has ebbed from this desolate headland. After thousands of years of human occupation, the last inhabitants left their croft here in 1854. Their name was MacAskill. The next stop on my grand tour takes me to the gaunt ruins of a legendary castle overlooking the sea. Dunskaith is a place steeped in Celtic myth.
According to the old stories, the great Celtic warrior hero Cuillin fled his home in Ulster to become a student of warfare right here at Dunskaith. Now, his teacher was the renowned female warrior and great sorceress, Skye.
I've come to Dunskaith to meet a modern proponent of the art of combat. Here I'm hoping that Dan will unleash my warrior potential with his unique weapon of choice, the humble spear.
Is there any particular way you have to hold this weapon?
Yes, we're looking for the halfway point, which is the balance point, and then we're going to bring the hand back to here.
Right.
And then we're going to turn it so you're holding it a little bit like a pencil. Chopsticks, that kind of thing.
A giant pencil with a giant point.
Absolutely.
So we've got a target here. I'm thinking of pub darts.
Okay.
And we're standing at the oche,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
So you're going to throw it and see if you can get into the bullseye.
Ooh.
As Dan demonstrates the correct throwing stance, I feel the spirit of competition stir unexpectedly, almost as if the ghosts of Scatach and Cuillin are cheering me on.
And
Oh, I missed completely.
Sadly, my performance falls short.
It's not easy, is it? But then I suppose if you were a warrior hero, you would have been practicing this day and night.
absolutely.
Night and
This
day.
would have been part of the process of becoming a warrior, was actually kind of training to the point that you could do it repetitively, time and time again.
accurately.
Practice makes perfect, they say. Well, almost.
Oh yes, there we go.
That's pretty good.
From my position, that was a bullseye.
I
but
was a bullseye. But...
Just when I think I've got the edge over Dan, he throws a blinder.
Yes! Excellent! I'm not sure I'm going to be able to beat that.
Legend says that after his lesson in warfare, Cuillin took on Scatach herself. They fought each other to a standstill, high on the Cuillin Ridge, where I'm heading next, taking a boat from Elgol to reach the heart of the Black Cuillin. On board is climbing guide Mike Lates. He's confident he'll get me high enough to experience the Cuillin Ridge for myself.
Can I stroll up there is what I want to know.
No,
Right.
otherwise you wouldn't be paying me to come this way.
That's true.
And judging by the menacing summits ahead, it's perhaps just as well that Mike's coming along.
First descent.
Do you want a rope?
Hopping ashore, we soon find ourselves surrounded by great, implacable rocky peaks. There isn't a tree in sight and little vegetation of any kind. This feels like an alien, hostile environment, indifferent to our puny presence here. And then we come in view of the last loch of this grand tour, Loch Curusk, which in Gaelic means the corrie of the waters. To my mind, this is the most dramatic stretch of fresh water in Britain.
It's actually 150 foot deeper than sea level.
Is it really?
Yeah, the ice has scooped it right out.
After a 20-minute hike, we reach the start of our climb, the Dew's Ridge. Mike tells me what to expect.
Mike, we've walked along the shores of Loch Curusk. Fantastic, beautiful setting. And we're at the bottom of the climb. This is the Dew's Ridge.
That's it, we're on rock from the loch side and we're heading up there. But then after that we're going to be out on those sweeps that you see to the right and just zigzagging up, trying to preserve our calves as much as we can.
Right, well, I'm all for preservation, self-preservation being the operative word. So if you lead on,
Yeah,
I'll
no
just
worries.
follow behind you.
Absolutely.
Are we there yet?
As rock climbs go, the Dew's Ridge is fairly benign. The great boilerplate slabs aren't particularly steep, but to get up them requires a technique that relies on friction and psychology. The secret, Mike tells me, is to keep upright and resist the urge to go on all fours.
Stand upright, that's
Right.
it, head above.
No, I do feel more of a quadruped, to be honest. I think it's simian knuckles scraping off the rock here. So moving together again.
Yeah, Remember just to give me a warning if you feel a little bit dodgy.
The slabs steepen, and I find it almost impossible not to overreach and flatten myself into the rock.
Now, I'm going to do this.
No, you're just not putting the other foot on. You just need to stand up, basically. It'll work.
You holding me?
Yeah, I've got you nice and safe.
Okay, here we go.
Just keep weight on the feet. Keep weight on the feet. Don't reach like that. Push on the feet. That's it. There you go,
Faith in friction. Faith in friction. Faith in friction. Here we go.
That's the one.
And we did it. Thank you, Mike. I wouldn't have done that without you. That's for sure.
Excellent. That's a nice little test piece, isn't it?
It is, a test piece. Well, that was quite tricky.
Yeah, you did great.
I'm not convinced that I need or can take further testing, but the crux of the climb still awaits. To go up, we first need to go down, over a vertical cliff.
Good luck, Paul.
Thanks
See you again
very
sometime.
much.
Oh, wow.
Mike makes it safely to the bottom. Then it's my turn.
That's good.
You see, so it is, in fact, just a drop.
Yeah.
Free
When
drop.
you get to the edge of the drop, get your knees against the rock.
Okay, like this. Keep my... Okay.
That's it.
And then just...
Then just down a bit, and then you'll get your left foot in under the roof, possibly. Just watch your top knuckles don't crush on the rocks. I've got you. Okay. Right, take that left hand down behind your arse.
Yep.
That's it. Hold it there and just let it run. Gradually let that run through your hand.
Woohoo!
Well done. Yep. Well done.
Hey, it's burning my hands.
Okay, Chief.
Well, that was fine. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Well, it was a mere bagatelle. Always strikes me slightly odd that you have to climb down to make further progress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Proper
Now,
mountaineering. It's a proper mountaineering route.
So that's the summit ahead of us then.
Yep. Yes.
After 5 hours of lung-busting effort, we're almost there, and it just keeps on getting better and better.
Wow. I feel on top of the world here.
Yeah, look at this view.
Leaving Mike to coil the rope, I get to the top ahead of him.
Now the last few feet, one foot in front of another. Oh, the end of an exhausting day, because this is the summit of Skye, which marks the end of my grand tour of the Lochs of Skye. And I have to say, this is a remarkable place to be. Fantastic, if slightly precarious. And the views from here are just absolutely breathtaking. Probably the best views anywhere in Scotland, if not the whole of Great Britain. How's that for drama?
On my next grand tour, I'm crisscrossing Scotland's longest sea loch as I explore the northern end of Loch Fyne.